Have you ever been envious of somebody who seems to really love the journey, the curiosity, the discovery of life? I know I have, and I'm thrilled to have the guest we have today because he is a master of the journey in life. And so my name's Gabriel Griess, the founder of Navigating Leaders, and your host, where we awaken your vision, live boldly. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a dear friend of mine, Rome Zaw, coming to us from Idaho. Rome is a black belt in Jiu Jitsu, a coach, a farmer, a builder, absolutely really a modern Renaissance man, and in the most authentic way to look at just what it takes to be a man. And so, Rome, thank you for coming to Navigating Leaders. Great to see you again, buddy.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. So, let's just jump in on the journey of life, right? So you and I have known each other, gosh, was it pre-2020?
2019, probably.
Yeah. So now coming up on 7 years, and neither of us are where we were when we met each other. And it's just been such a gift to witness you and to watch your journey. But I've only seen a little window of your life, but your entire journey in life has been pretty interesting. So you grew up in Chechnya, then to New York, and then through your adult life, but you've struggled with your health, like at some level, almost your entire life, although you couldn't tell it by looking at you today. So can you tell us a little bit about that early journey and what that evoked in you for your adult self?
When I was born, I had a staph infection on day one. Me and my mom both had staph infections, and I also had like a nervous system dysfunction because the country, they process a lot of oil where I'm from, and they were doing like illegal chemical dumping, and people died. Some people got sick. I was one of the people that got sick. And then when we came to the United States as immigrants, you go to all the doctors that they send you to get all the vaccines and to get all the health stuff and medicines. So I used to get sick a lot. So in my life, I've probably taken about 100 plus cycles of oral antibiotics and a few dozen cycles of IV antibiotics. I used to get strep throat all the time. I had severe like gut issues and anxiety and sleep problems. I mean, as I got older, they developed more and more. And then when I was about 21, I had a really big breakdown, and doctors told me I wouldn't be able to do jiu-jitsu anymore. And that was the first thing that I really found that I loved, besides exercise and lifting weights, which my father introduced me to very early. And I started because I was also working in the medical field. I was doing nursing, and I just noticed how sick everybody was. And I was becoming like one of them, like the people in the hospital. And I didn't know what I needed to do, but I did know that whatever what was being done and whatever I was being exposed to was not the way. So I started to look for a different way, and I dropped out of the medical industry, and I started to study holistic nutrition and detox and nervous system dysfunction and breathwork and meditation and plant medicine and fascia and connective tissue work. And I traveled the world doing that, mainly to heal myself. But as I started to progress in my healing and started to feel better, people would ask me questions and I would give them answers, and that led to a different style of coaching outside of what I was doing with jiu-jitsu. So I was helping people with their health and healing their nervous systems and healing old traumas that were stuck inside their bodies, and getting rid of toxicity and healing old injuries. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at.
So how did you have the courage, right, to break free of the norm, to break free of this, what was expected of you?
Yeah. I really loved jiu-jitsu. And when I went to the doctor's office, I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of neck pain. I had 2 herniated discs in my neck. And the doctors told me that I would never compete again. And I probably have to quit jiu-jitsu and take on a different activity, because eventually I'll need to get my neck fused. And that lit a fire inside of me that I knew I had before, because I was always very different than my peers, because I always questioned the norm and I questioned the status quo, even in school. I mean, I dropped out of high school in 9th grade because I didn't resonate with what was being taught. I thought I could figure out a better way. And yeah, it was just the fire inside of me. Like, I don't like being told I can't do something, and that somebody else knows what's better for me in my life than what I know, because I feel right. Like, I feel I am, and I know which direction I need to go. And I don't think anybody else can tell me which direction I need to go. They can give me suggestions, and I'm open to those suggestions if I respect that person and their opinion. But when people tell me I can't do something and it's an actual challenge, the fire burns bright.
Well, and you had such an interesting journey, right? And for you to do it really so individualistically, right, of your own burning desire. Like, I like to talk about, like, there's a crown on my heart, right? There's a purpose for each of us that only each of us has, right, to fulfill. And I think life lots of times is just a discovery of, how do I get to that? How do I uncover what that is, and then begin to walk that out, right? And in witnessing you in your life, that's what I see and have seen for years now. How do you keep going, right? Like, and especially, let's go back kind of to your earlier years, like that, those early 20s, when, now you're a young man, you're out in the world, you're really on your own, but you're breaking from normative behavior, status quo type stuff, right? And you're like, it's time to start this journey. How do you keep going in the face of what I have to imagine wasn't a lot of support, at least early on?
No, everybody thought I was crazy.
And now you're the wise guy living in Idaho.
Yeah, sometimes I like to think of myself as wise, but mostly right. Foolish. But it's a thin line, right? It's a very, very thin line. But yeah, I mean, when I was in my 20s, I just felt like there was more to life. And when I started to question my health, it was the first break inside of the matrix, so to speak, the matrix of conditioning. And it started with health, and then it moved into money, and then it moved into relationships, and then it moved into location. And then it was just like one domino after another. So for me, my major domino was health and wellness. That essentially shifted my paradigm of what's possible which was very different than the limitations that I was exposed to what was possible, through cultural conditioning, through school, through whatever, family environment. And then as I started to question all of those things, the curiosity essentially took over. Like, for example, when I realized that I kept getting sick, the first thing that I changed was I quit drinking when I was 20 years old. And it was before I was allowed to drink, right? So as soon as I quit drinking, I stopped getting sick. I stopped getting strep throat. I stopped getting the flu. I started to recover faster. So yeah, I mean, that was like one of the first steps. And then it was like organic food. And then it was understanding hydration, and then understanding toxicity. So for me, the thing that keeps me going is my curiosity and my passion for learning about something and implementing it, and then seeing the changes. So on one end, I consider myself a scientist because I come in with a hypothesis and then I test that hypothesis. But on the other end, I consider myself an artist, because as much as I enjoy systems and processes, I also enjoy the ability to freestyle and to figure it out in the moment, because every moment requires a different way of being from me. And like you said, like we're constantly discovering, like I'm constantly discovering in those moments what's inside of me. And I can only discover that through a unique moment, which is right now.
Oh, that's beautiful. So health is obviously a huge thing. And in the industry, the health industry is massive, right? Which my company is part of that. What do you say to folks who are looking to try something different or start something new? Where would you encourage them to look into their own life, refrigerator, detergents, whatever it is? What would you encourage people to first take a look at?
I think people like data, and data can give you what you've been suspecting for a really long time. So I recommend people start with first of all, getting clear on what their symptoms are, like what's going on with you. Like, do you have anxiety? Do you have sleep problems? Do you have gut problems? Do you have low testosterone? Do you have hormonal issues? Are you overweight? Are you feeling like you're underweight? Do you have low energy? So I would get clear on like what the symptoms are. Are you prone to depression? Are you prone to anxiety? So once you understand what the symptoms are, and then you can look at some data. So that would be more like subjective data of like what's going on internally. Then objective data, I would start very, very simply with looking at what are the mineral balances and imbalances inside of the body in terms of minerals and heavy metals. So 2 tests that they can get is a hair tissue mineral analysis, which is pretty good. I would avoid all blood tests and urine tests in terms of heavy metals and minerals because they're useless. It's just what's circulating inside of your body right now. Or what we do at my retreat, we do something called an oligoscan, OLIGOSCAN, which uses spectrometry, like light technology, to see what heavy metals and minerals are inside of the tissue right now. Once you understand that, you can start pairing the symptoms to the heavy metals and the minerals. So for example, like magnesium, which mostly everybody's depleted in, is responsible for 300 plus processes that we are aware of inside of the body right now. So that's one place where they can start. And then from there, They can start making the necessary changes in their house, in their nutrition, in their lifestyle. Essentially, it's just like all lifestyle changes. The other end of the spectrum of what is messed up in people, I've measured over 5,000 people in the last 8 years on the state of their nervous system, and I mean like really broad spectrum of different types of humans, from moms with 4 kids to single billionaire, like professional athlete entrepreneurs on the other end of the spectrum, and everybody in between, including special forces guys. And everybody's nervous system is functioning at way below what their potential capacity could be. So when you understand that, then you can start making the necessary habit and lifestyle changes also to get the nervous system up to function. Because, and I would say I would even start there, because it's the easiest place to start. And it's also the most productive place to start, because the nervous system is broken up into, to put it simply, the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, and the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze. Most people, if we look at it as a spectrum, are here, mostly in fight, flight, or freeze. That's why we're seeing a lot of the symptoms that I mentioned earlier, and neck pain, lower back pain, digestive issues, urinary issues, so on and so forth. So I would start with those 2 things, because those are the 2 things that are most likely to kill you: toxicity and nervous system dysfunction. Once you get those dialed in, it essentially changes, first of all, your perspective on life. Because if your nervous system is stuck in a state of fight or flight, then anything that happens in your life is a struggle, because internally your body thinks that you're in danger. So when you think that you're in danger, it's very hard to maintain relationships, a business, work, children, school, whatever it is that you do in your life. But when you are relaxed, when your perspective is open, you're open to new ideas, you're open to making changes, habits are easier to build. Like, it's very hard if you're stressed out to build a new habit of not eating sugar or not drinking coffee or whatever, or alcohol or whatever it is that people are tied to. But when you're not stressed out, it's very easy to make those changes, or a lot easier to make those changes, because your body doesn't crave the soothing effect of those substances, those external substances.
How would you recommend somebody to basically figure out where their nervous system is?
So there's specific measurements that you can do. When I see people, I measure their vital life capacity, which is essentially a score of where they're breathing in their body, how they're breathing in their body, and what part of their breathing apparatus they're using to breathe. So just to give it a thing, when you breathe a certain way, when you breathe mostly with the chest and the neck and the shoulders, what happens is you're stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight nervous system. So basically, you're signaling to your body that you're in danger. Now, the body is made to be able to process being in a sympathetic state. The problem is most people are in a sympathetic state as the primary state the majority of their lives. So the body's not made to process that much cortisol and adrenaline on a daily basis. It's just unnatural for the body to be able to do that. Like our ancestors, they led harder lives, but if there was a saber-toothed tiger and it came to attack you, you would either fight it, run away from it, or freeze, and hopefully it would go away or it would eat you. But you wouldn't be thinking about the saber-toothed tiger all the time. So when you watch animals, they do something interesting. They shake whenever they feel stimulated in their sympathetic nervous system. So essentially the measurements are how you breathe. There are specific measurements that I can take that can show you where your nervous system is based on where you're breathing in your body, like what parts of your body you're breathing into, how big your expansion is, and then how small your contraction is. And then I do a calculation and I give you your score. So that's essentially the easiest way to tap into the nervous system is through the breath. The breath and movement, but breath is movement. So that's essentially how you would go about doing it. Does that make sense?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping we had something we could do here in Texas that I might be able to measure.
We can do it. I just need some tools to take the measurements. I can do it over Zoom with people. You would just need like a tape measure, and you would need to, and I would need to see your body from your chin to your hips, and then I can see what's going on.
All right. Sounds like another follow-up with Christy as a helper to run the tape measure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So to the audience that's out there, when we get to the end, Rome will be able to share any of his socials and whatnot, because he is worth seeing. One of the things I love so much, Rome, is checking out your socials, especially when you're doing jiu-jitsu with the kids, right? Your movement. And I think if I recall this correctly, with your boys, didn't you have your living room set up initially? Like originally you started so much of this with just your own family. Can you talk about movement as medicine and how you're working with your kids and then others' children's?
Yeah. So when I first started teaching martial arts, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and striking, and I had an MMA gym in New York. So I was teaching adults because I thought I wanted to teach professional fighters. And then over time, I realized that I really enjoy working with children. So I launched a program. At that time, it wasn't available to teach Brazilian Jiu Jitsu to anybody under 7. So I had a program for kids 2.5 to 5. And I started the program with my older son and my nephews. And then that program blew up and really, really expanded. We had people driving like 2-3 hours to our academy in New York to bring their children. And I really enjoyed that. So I just see that each generation that's born is essentially weaker and less connected to their body than the generation prior, at least since I've been born. And a lot of that has to do with screens. So we used to be a play-based culture. Now we are a screen-based culture, and we're seeing the effects of that. So every day that I'm with my children, every day that I'm not with my children, I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly practicing. I'm constantly developing my body. And I'm teaching them the same principles and the same practices as I'm still constantly developing them and evolving those practices. But essentially, my goal isn't to be the best in the world at anything. It's just to be the best me in the world, and also to be able to stay independent physically until the day that I die. Because you're in the healthcare industry, and you see that even though people are living a significantly long period of time, the quality of life is very low. And a lot of that has to do with poor habits and poor lifestyle habits and poor movement patterns and connective tissue dysfunction. Did you know? I mean, I'm going to ask you, did you know that the United States, or at least I guess the social care programs, spend more money on ligament and tendon injuries than they do on heart disease and diabetes combined?
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
Crazy.
It makes sense. right? Because you can have those injuries for decades and decades. You know?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know I've had an Achilles challenge ever since basic training, and we just went skiing, and it performed pretty well. And then I felt pretty good, and then I think just Saturday, yeah, we went to the gym and played hoops, and I started running the length of the court, and luckily I was picked up to finish a game, and it was only like 3 more points, because I realized I wasn't either limber enough, warmed up enough, or really conditioned enough to be running full court basketball as of today. And but then we played like 5 half court games, and it was awesome, right? And I was way slower than I recall ever having been. But the next day it was wild to feel like every joint, every ligament, every bit of connective tissue was awake, right? We'll say, I was still able to move and stuff, but I was like, wow, I get to do more of that, because it was so good for my body to move like that.
Movement is definitely medicine, and that's a medicine that is available to anybody, any place, any time. They don't need equipment. They just need the right information and the right knowledge to move in a way that is natural to human beings. We've always moved. We will always move. Maybe not all of us, but the ones that stay natural human beings will always move, and it will always contribute to a better quality of life. Because when we move well, we can play well. When we play well, we connect better.
Yeah.
Playfulness is the honey of life.
I remember you teaching me that teacup movement or whatever, where we brought the cup over our heads and then around and around behind the back or whatever. That was pretty cool. So what do you do with your kiddos, especially kiddos who maybe weren't exposed to movement a lot? Like, how do you get kids to transition from screen to a mat or out in the woods or what have you?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's a great question. I would set up a household that's built for movement. If you want your kids to move, you have to move. So we all have a mimic cells in our brain, essentially. Like, we learn through our environment. So if the people in our environment are fit and healthy and they're constantly moving, like, that's what we know. So the best thing that you can do is, people used to ask me, my older son started reading really early, and both my kids read a lot. We don't have any TV at home, so that's all they do besides movement. So people used to ask me, like, how do you get them to read? It's just like, I don't get them to read. I read, and that's all that's available for him to do. So, like, for example, we have gymnastics rings hanging from basically the ceiling. We have a punching bag, and this is like in the middle of our living room. We have a coffee table instead of a dinner table, so we sit low on the floor. We have a lot of movement tools, like different balls and different tools over here available, and different resistance bands available inside of the house. Outside of the house outside is, unless you live in an urban environment, outside is set up for movement. I mean, even if you live in an urban environment, but you can move here in a rural environment without shoes and barefoot. So we do a lot of barefoot trail running and barefoot hiking. So we're just constantly moving, and walking is essentially the original exercise, and you can still see the indigenous walking significant distances every single day. So yeah, I would start there. Like, set up your space, start moving yourself, try to do it without a gym. Gyms are super toxic. I mean, if you have to go to the gym, but it's best to just get some stuff that you can do at home. because when it's in front of you and you're always looking at it, you're more likely to do it. If there's less friction to do the activity, you're more likely to do it. And it's the same thing with food. If you have food in your house that's not good for you, if you get stressed out, you're most likely to eat it. So the first thing that I do when clients fly me out is I just go through their pantry and their refrigerator and I throw out everything that they shouldn't be eating, and I replace it, obviously with their consent, and then I replace it with whatever it is that is delicious and nutritious and is the right fuel for a human being that treats their body like a race car versus a 1984 Honda Civic from a junkyard.
So not to set a bar that's like destined for perfection, right? Or, where people start and quit. Like, so walking, good nutrition, what about water and quality water? And is there, you got anything to say about plastics or microplastics?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about microplastics and plastics, but I would start, if we're looking at a hierarchy of the hierarchy of needs, I would start with optimizing the breathing first, because when you breathe well, you can have more energy and more endurance and your cardiovascular system works better. And then I would go into small doses of movement, whether it's walking, whether it's even doing calisthenics and push-ups and pull-ups. And then I would look at hydration, which is what you just mentioned. And yes, there are lots of issues with our water in the United States. I mean, all over the world, but I would say the United States. So if you want to improve your hydration, the easiest thing that you can do is to get a reverse osmosis filter. And the complaint for a lot of people is going to be, well, there's no minerals in the reverse osmosis water. Well, that's fine. You can just put in your own minerals and you know that they're clean and you know that they're high quality. And yeah, I've been drinking reverse osmosis water now for almost 20 years. I mean, obviously there's other water that you can potentially drink, including spring water, but you would have to make sure that it's tested for heavy metals and farm contaminants, depending on where you are. And most people, like if you live in a city, I mean, if you live anywhere, you can go on a website called EWG and type in EWG water in Google and then type in your zip code and you can see what is in your county's water or your city's water, because they do testing and they'll tell you how terrible it is. And reverse osmosis will get rid of 99.99999% of those toxins. Now, are there other things that you can do to your water? Yes, there are. You can also put a little bit of salt in your water. Make sure it's a really high quality salt and a little bit of potassium in your water. And and then maybe even a little magnesium, and then you're good to go. You're good to go.
That's amazing. Thank you.
And don't drink water out of plastic bottles. And if you're at home, drink out of glass. If you're traveling, obviously glass isn't very sustainable. So drink it out of preferably something that's stainless steel. I mean, obviously there probably could be better things to drink out of, but it's a lot better than plastic.
That's awesome, brother. So EWG water, put in your zip code and take a look at it. Get your breathing in order, work on your movement, water or walking and hydration. Something that's always inspired me about you, Rome, is that I experience you as a very whole person, right? And you kind of said it earlier in wanting to be the best version of you, right? Not the best at something or somewhere, but just I want to be the best Rome, right? How did you come to that space, right? How did you settle into that space? And what were some of the tools you've used, or some things that have been helpful, maybe books that folks might look at? Just how did you get to where you are today in your journey?
I've had the unique opportunity to live many different types of lives. Um, when I was young, I ran the streets and I hung out with a lot of drug dealers and criminals. And then I went to university and I hung out with a lot of people that were trying to become scholars. And then from there, I hung out with a lot of athletes and professional athletes throughout my jiu-jitsu and martial arts career. And then I hung out with a lot of very high level entrepreneurs, anywhere from people that were making 6 figures to 7 figures to even guys that have IPO'd at $10 billion. And I've also hung out with like special forces guys and just all types of different people. Like I just love people, and I love to learn about people. And for a long time, I was looking for models to build my life on. And I read a lot of books. I've read thousands of books. As you can tell, there's just some books here. And I have a very extensive library, and it's very different. I read books from religion to spirituality to biology and anatomy and physiology to personal growth and survival books and farming and all types of stuff. So I'm a very curious human being. So for a long time, I was looking for models because I was young and I was looking for elders to learn from. So people that can potentially teach me things and lead me. And I traveled the world and I practiced with a lot of different gurus, and I lived in the Amazon rainforest for a while, and I lived in Costa Rica, and I traveled to the East. And what I found was that I only know how to optimize and make my life really my own. So I can learn certain things and tools and skills and mindsets from certain people. But it's my duty to integrate it into my life where it's harmonious, right? Because harmony is really important. Like if you have disharmony, you will eventually have dis-ease. And I learned that throughout the years, through my own experiments and my own failures and my own pain and suffering that I was unnecessarily putting on my own shoulders. So some of the tools that I've learned, like I said, breathwork, movement, meditation, journaling, reading and solving problems holistically. Because if you have a problem and you try a solution that's a conventional solution, that can, like, for example, we'll use the medical paradigm. If you have anxiety and you go and you take an anti-anxiety medication or an antidepressant med, you're going to potentially mollify your anxiety. Maybe your anxiety will go away. Maybe it won't. Maybe your doctor will prescribe 2 more anxiety meds and eventually you won't feel anxiety, but you also won't feel anything. You might also get erectile dysfunction. You might also start developing suicidal tendencies. You might develop sleep problems. Now you go back to your psychiatrist, they give you 3 more medications. So that's how we got to where we are right now, because most people in our culture, or all of us in our culture, have been trained to look for shortcuts, and those shortcuts lead to longer problems. You know, one of my teachers always told me, Rome, it's important to take the long way home. And yeah, like meditation is a lot slower. Breath work might be a little bit slower, maybe not, than the meds, because some of those meds have a loading phase. So it's understanding that like your body, your mind, it has everything that you need in order to thrive. It's you who is blocking that experience through essentially programming and conditioning, right? Or poor habits, which can fall into programming and conditioning as well. So yeah, those are essentially the tools. Community is a great tool. Mentorship is a great tool. Coaching is a great tool. I've spent so much money, time, and energy on coaching and mentorship because I know there's people out there that have had the problems that I have or had, and they've solved them, and I pay them for their perspectives. Like those are shortcuts. It's not going to come in a pill for the most part. It's not going to come in an instant enlightenment experience. It's going to take work. It might not be easy at times, but it's going to be worthwhile because you will become a more self-sufficient / community sufficient an enjoyable human being to be around for yourself and others through that journey. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Where, for somebody, I guess who may not know, right? And you've said this a couple of times, talk about what breath work actually is and where might somebody go to dabble or get an exposure or get some decent, starting breath work.
They can go on my YouTube. I have a lot of information on there. We have a program that explains people how to breathe better. We've sold that's
isn't
probably
that funny
our
that we have to like
teach
people how to breathe.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, but like also like I've studied breath work from a myriad of perspectives, from China to Russia to India to the scientists in the West. And there's a lot of different perspectives on breath work. And I think they're all great perspectives. But what I've done in the last 6 or 7 years is I've sequenced it where there is a first step. It's where you breathe inside of your body. That's the most important because that controls your nervous system. And your nervous system is basically, it's like a lens that you look at the world through. So if you are calm and relaxed, well, then the world becomes full of opportunities. If you are fearful and scared, the world is full of threats. So when you fix that, then you can go to the next layer, and that's how you breathe. When you breathe in different ways, you can trigger different chemical processes that trigger, emotional, psychological processes inside of your body. So there's breathing for sleep, there's breathing for focus, there's breathing for having a psychedelic experience, like a breakthrough transformational experience that releases DMT. There's breath work for improving sex. There's breath work to improve digestion. There's different styles of breath work and that's essentially the how you breathe. And then there's also what you use to breathe, which is essentially your nose or your mouth. And there's myriads of research based on nose and mouth breathing coming out of Russia and coming out of the United States. I've also had a unique perspective because I speak Russian. So I'm able to learn from doctors and scientists in Russia as well as other places. But the Russian stuff usually isn't translated into English. So
you mentioned YouTube. And so where do people find you, Rome, if they want to dig into your breath work or any other stuff?
We have a page called Hard Roll Jiu Jitsu on YouTube. They can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and they can also send the message and I'll send them links to stuff. I just don't have everything super organized right now because we're kind of in a transitional phase in our business.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll get the links from you and put them in the show notes and make sure folks can find their way to you. But I want to say thank you to you personally. So I did an episode a while ago about triggers, and you may or may not remember this, but you gave me some counsel during COVID. So we had gotten on a call for, maybe it was one of our coaching calls when we were coaching together or something, but it was early in the COVID era, and I was working from home, and my kids kept busting in to my office, and it stressed me out. I was like, you can't be in here, act like I'm not here, right? And I was telling you about that, and you're like, oh, what a gift. And I'm like, what do you mean? And you're like, kids are your greatest therapists, and they're free. Like, they're going to trigger you all day long and show you what to work at. So I've never forgotten that. And as my children trigger me, as they still do, I get to, be non-reactive and look at it and dig in with them.
I think that's a really beautiful way to raise children and also not destroy ourselves, because we're basically building their nervous system with every response or reaction that we have. So they're basically learning how to be in this world based on how we respond to them. So yeah, I mean, since then, I've definitely dialed in a lot of the ideas with the nervous system and how it relates to triggers. I think that's a big thing. That's like probably the biggest thing. It's like when your nervous system is dialed in, you stop reacting. And people react in two different ways, essentially, on the spectrum. Some people overreact and some people underreact and shut down. So if you go to the center or a little bit above it, you can respond. And sometimes the response that's required is for you to raise your voice, but most of the time it's not. So when your nervous system is dialed in and you're breathing, because you can basically negate the trigger response just with a couple of high quality breaths. You inhale through the nose, and then you slow down the exhale at least 2 or 3 times how long the inhale was.
Well, let's do it. Can you do it with me?
Yeah.
All right. So anybody driving a car, is it okay? Is it safe, or should they wait until they park?
Yeah. I do this all the time. Just if you don't breathe regularly, which is funny, right? If you don't breathe regularly, if you don't breathe consciously, you might get a little bit lightheaded. So just be mindful. But basically, it's very simple. This is how humans were made to regulate themselves. So the first thing you can do is, let's say you're really triggered. Let's say you're really, really triggered. And one thing that you can do, I'll give you 2 different breaths. One thing is you're going to inhale twice through the nose. You're going to go, it's like sharp inhales. You're going to go, and then exhale through the mouth, like you're breathing out through a straw. Make sure the belly button is going to the spine. Now we're going to do another one. And then one more. And now we're going to do something called a triangle breath. So you're going to inhale into the nose anywhere from 3 to 6 seconds. So you're going to inhale. You're going to hold. And you're going to exhale. Again, inhale. hold, exhale. So the exhale is longer. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And release and just come back to your regular breathing.
That's awesome, man. I think what's amazing when we do that is how much time slows down. Like how present, like seconds become like minutes. It's such a neat experience to get present like that. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's like as you get older, what does everybody say? Oh, time's just moving so fast. So every morning when I wake up, I go through my morning rituals and breath work and prayers and meditations combined for 30 to 60 minutes. And it sets the frame for the rest of the day. So I become a lot more present, calm, and loving and kind, right? Because when we start the day in an overreactive fashion, well, the first thing that goes away is our kindness to ourselves and others. So, and that leads to a lot of different side effects. So one of the benefits of a breathwork practice and a meditation practice that's based on the breath is essentially it allows us to be more kind because we're present. We get to choose.
Well, when we think about who we wake up around, right? Probably our spouse or significant other or kids or parents or grandparent, like people we really love, right? And also the people that have easy access to all our triggers. So all the more reason to be present with them.
100%. I mean, they deserve it.
Yeah.
They deserve it. They deserve the best you, and you deserve the best you. And that's the only thing that you have control over. You don't have control over how they show up or what kind of mood they wake up in, but you do have complete authority over your own state, whether you realize it or not. So this gives you complete authority to become the author of your life and how you create it. Now, results may vary, right? The effort that you put in doesn't always have a direct effect on the result right away, but over time, the less life like everybody else authors your life, well, the more unique your book that you're writing in this plane of existence becomes, because you become the author. Does that make sense?
It does. It actually is a great tee up for my book, The Results Tree, which was my journey. So it's recently been released. I've got a copy of it coming in the mail to you, and would love to see it on your bookshelf back there and hear what you think about it. And it'll be good, because a lot of what's in there is a path you and I both trod. So this is great. So I owe you a trip to Idaho. I got to come see the farm and walk barefoot and do some grappling. My son Preston is now taller than me. He's probably coming in at about 6'1", about 175, and he's just dense. And Harrison's chasing him down. And then Michaela is just as tough as it gets. So love the kiddos and want to get them out there and get them to visit. So any last things you'd like to share? Any other information folks should know?
Yeah, I mean, transformation is inside of you at any given moment, at any time. You get to choose a different direction or a better direction for you. And, the world will adjust. The world will adjust. Like your family will adjust. Those that you love will adjust. Because if you're not living your life with purpose, then you're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting all of those around you, because whether they realize it or not, consciously or unconsciously, they don't like seeing you suffer. They don't like seeing you shaming yourself or feeling guilty for overreacting or underreacting somewhere. So yeah, take care of yourself. Like, you deserve it. Like, you're a beautiful human being. I love you. You need to love you. And then the world kind of opens itself up to you when you start to love yourself and you start to take care of yourself and take care of this vehicle and this temple that God has given us. And this life can be a blessing. All you have to do is choose for it to be, regardless of what's going on in the world around us.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Rome. So to the audience, to everybody out there, Rome Zaw, truly a Renaissance man, a journeyman, a student of life. But I love his use of curiosity, love, kindness, grace, just the digging into your own individual life and seeking to maximize it, right? In terms of how it feels, right? It feels in your body. It feels in your emotion. You see it in the clarity of your eyes and how your skin is like as this health and wellness takes over your body, it just becomes apparent. It becomes radiant, right? And I experience you that way, Rome. I experience you as radiant. So thank you for coming here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We'll do this again at some point because I know you're a student and you are continuing to learn more. And we'd love to have you share with our team here in our audience. So for those of you out there, this absolutely spoke to you. I know it did. And so if there's something you get to do to apply, to shift, to change, honor yourself, make those shifts, make those change, make that commitment, make that investment into yourself. And for those of you that this totally rang true, you're like, oh my God, so-and-so would love to hear this from Rome, or so-and-so was just talking about water, or so-and-so was just talking about whatever it was that came up here, drop this in a text, send it over to them and tell them you're thinking about them. Tell them you love them. Tell them, hey, this moved me today and it made me think of you. And that in itself can light somebody up. So subscribe, like, share on all the channels on YouTube. We appreciate you. We honor you in your journey. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You can't be anywhere else. So take a breath, right? We got some good breath training here. Take a breath, get centered, make some decisions that support you and really align with who you be. And then do it again tomorrow. And do it the next day and the next day. And who knows where you're going to be in a few months or a few years. But my name's Gabriel Griess. I'm your host of the Navigating Leaders podcast, where you awaken your vision and live boldly. Thank you. And until next time, God bless.